I do want to just point out real quick that I hope everybody is taking care of each other, taking care of yourselves. Honestly, just wear the fucking masks and social distance and all that stuff, because there are two people that we know who recently tested positive and they're quarantining right now. So Tim Schofield, I hope you're doing all right, you and your girlfriend. And then one of our loyal fans, well, one of our loyal viewers, I should say, Michael Pepper Tech, just tested positive for COVID as well.
What? Michael, get well soon. Hi, I'm Isa.
And
Or
I'm
is it your
Josh.
turn?
Oh, I don't
It's
know.
your turn to be
I was going
Joshua?
with you.
Well,
It's always my
and
turn to be Joshua. What are you talking about?
what?
It's always my turn to be Joshua.
Well, when we actually do see each other, it would be nice to pretend, those like boyfriend girlfriend challenges where you pretend like the other person and see if the other see now it's not a challenge because I told you.
Well,
Never mind.
these are all things that I feel like you're going to see on TikTok, and then you're going to expect me to do it, but we're not going to be good at them. We're not. Like, do you really expect me to run into the room and go, babe, you got to get up. My girlfriend's coming. I've seen that challenge.
That's true. And then I'm gonna be like, Tita, oh, si Joshua.
You're going to be like, I'm your girlfriend. Like, you won't get the joke, and you.
Oh my god, that's so mean. But also very true. Right. Okay, this is technically together. Welcome, folks and friends. We did take a break because I was
I think we
overwhelmed.
deserve. I think we deserve a break from getting the intro wrong because we've been on a break. Not that kind of break.
Yes. But yes. There's no. Oh wait. I think my mic should be like this. Okay. So, yeah. Off to a rough start. Today's podcast lesson is that you have to review stuff even if you once gotten it right? Because I just got it wrong and did not know how to deal with
Every
that.
single
So,
time. Got to do it every time.
yeah, it's hard. Well, anyway, welcome to Technically Together and today's podcast episode topic.
Well,
would
before
be
we do
like,
that, since we've been off for a couple of weeks, well, technically,
together.
we
What? Huh?
we took a break for one episode, to which a couple of my friends were saying like, "Hey, is everything okay?" I was like, so I told Brian, who I'm sure is listening to this, I told him,
Hi,
sorry,
Brian.
we took a break this week. Hopefully that's okay. And he was like, yeah, there's plenty of content to play back anyway. Like, he was like, he'll just repeat. He actually repeats episodes when he has nothing else to play. So here's a fresh episode for you. So hopefully you enjoy this one.
This is dedicated to Brian, even if the topic does not concern him.
Well, actually it could. I'll find a way to tie it in, you know me. But the he told, because we did an Among Us chat the other day where we were all
Mhm.
playing Among Us, and I saw one of my kapatids, or my littles from college. She lives in Hawaii now, and
Ooh, does she know where Bretman Rock lives? Bretman's new house is so nice. I want to live in a house like that. It's like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
so you told
Only-
me to be friends, basically stalk Ian and Chris.
Yes,
And
you know where they
so
are.
you're gonna so are you gonna tell Roman? Roman is my little. You gonna tell Roman
Uh-huh.
to stalk Bretman Rock?
Yes. Wait,
I
okay.
think
First of all, babe, what I know from Bretman Rock is that in Hawaii they don't do that. They're all friends. Ooh, I flicked my mic. They're all friends. It's a nice community. They don't bother Bretman. They just say hi when they want to. Hawaii's so nice. In my head, I've made it up to be this wonderful tropical paradise, very similar to my tropical paradise if I could get out of the house, I guess. Um, my point is, Bretman's new house literally is beside the mountains. Wait, that's your house.
I'm near the mountains as well. Yes.
Yeah, but it's like, so I think he's like super near a beach and super near the mountain. So his
I think
background when
anybody
he takes
in
stuff,
almost anybody in Hawaii is pretty close to a beach.
no, his old house was not. I did not have that view. His old
Okay.
house
So
was
right out of
beside
his
that.
window. Okay, I get you.
Yeah, his old house had this really bad neighbor, but that's not. I'm rambling now. let's
Yeah,
go
can I
back
get
to
back to
Roman.
what I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
say?
I'm sorry.
Okay, so see how patient I am that I let her go on the 5 tangents that she goes on when I'm trying to get one point out. Um, the
Hey.
we have to remind our audience what our dynamic is. We've been gone for a week. The so I told the chat that they I'm trying to remember how the topic came up, but I think Roman asked me, like, do you do any podcasts? And I was like, yes, I'm on 2 podcasts. One of them is a tech podcast, and the other one is me and Issa. And I'm sure she's aware of you. She knows of you from like our social media. I do want to go to Honolulu. It's one of the places I really want to go to because every time I go to Hawaii, it's always Maui. Like I need to go to the other islands,
Mhm.
and I want to go to Honolulu. I know that Honolulu is basically LA. I get it. In a lot of ways it's basically like downtown LA and then it's Hawaii around it. But that's okay. I want to go to Honolulu, see my little um and then when I put the link in the description, Brian was like, everyone subscribe. It's a super cute show. Highly recommend.
Oh, Brian. You're awesome.
So since we've been out since this is 2 weeks since we've recorded, I figured it would be a good opportunity for us to just check in with one another, like a live check-in for the show. Like this is literally us catching up because you've been busy, I've been busy, and as a matter of fact, one of the reasons why we love doing the podcast is because it's a built-in weekly date.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
we message every day, but actually sitting down and just chatting is like maybe
Yeah.
every other day at best.
Yeah,
Um,
actually, if you're a couple, I highly recommend the podcast because you are forced to sit down and talk about stuff.
forced.
It's there's no excuse. Literally, we have to do this every week. We have to like sit here, do nothing else but have a conversation. And when you put it that way, it's actually pretty therapeutic.
Yeah. Especially since we have an open-ended podcast, it could end up being about any number of things. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess I'll start it off by just asking, how are you doing? And what have you been
I'm
up to?
okay after I sent you that message about not being stressed. So I've literally gone through the whole cycle of getting so stressed that I was getting singaw. Like, okay, that's one weird thing about me. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but if I get super stressed, I get these like pimples, and they're not like skin pimples. It's not my skincare. My skincare is amazing. It's like they're like from underneath. Like I like to explain it as like all the crap bubbling up to the surface and manifesting
Ingrown
as pimples on my,
pimples?
yeah, stuff like that. Like that's how I feel like, cause like they're from under, like,
Yeah.
so I get those, and then I get singaws. And like, what is singaw in English?
Cold sore in the mouth. In
No,
the
a
mouth, right?
cold sore. Yeah, no, a cold sore is caused by the virus. I think it's a canker
Oh,
sore.
fair. Canker sore. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's probably it.
So I get those. So basically, it's your mouth is a cesspool. Every time you get a cut, it turns into a singaw. Basically that. But there's something about my mouth. It's very, I don't know why that's another tangent, but I have to only use special toothpaste because otherwise my mouth cuts itself. It gets irritated. Stuff like that. Anyway, I've gone through the whole cycle of getting so stressed. I had like 7 singaws, and then like I had like pimples, and then I couldn't sleep well, and then just flip to now I've just decided to not get stressed. It's just it's I went 360 already. Like that's how what happened in the last week. It was a high stress situation. Still have a pile of phones. I still have like a pile of wearables to do stuff on, but
Yeah.
it's mindset, right? It's mindset. I'm still struggling with how to not stress myself out when it comes to work. So I guess I'm okay.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, and it was a super cute video that she sent to me via Telegram, and it was just after being so stressed, I've just decided, babe, I'm not going to be stressed anymore. And I was like, I wish it was that easy, but like I will admit that there's a certain mindset that I'm starting to have recently when it comes to our work. If I have to take an L, I'm going to take an L. That's
What's
just
an
what I
L?
a loss. W's and L's, wins and losses.
Oh,
If I have to take the L,
that's
I'm
the
just
first
gonna
time
take
I heard that.
oh, more or less a sports term. But if I have to take the L, I'm just going to take the L. Like if I couldn't get around to doing something and it actually causes someone to like be upset with me or disappointed with me,
Mhm.
there's a part of me that's like, I wish I could have done better. And if you give me a chance to work with you again, I will. It's just right
Mhm.
now, we all have to realize, and I hope they realize. I think a lot of our contacts do realize, especially for people like me and you, babe, we are one person operations.
Yeah, and so I also launched a website. Hooray!
Hmm.
So now I'm also editing. It's been crazy. It's
Yeah.
honestly been like I I want to do a lot of things, but it's stressing me out so much.
Hmm.
In my mind, it's not just the stressing myself out, it's the consistent nag of wanting to do all the things I want to do and consistently trying to convince myself that I don't have I can't that I have too much on my plate already. So um it's also me taking a step back and admitting that at least for my channel I can't get everything done.
Yeah.
Who's texting me?
Well, I would say that lately, one of the big things I've been realizing is if it has taken me a while to get a video done, like for example, this Apple Watch SE is over a month
Mhm.
old now,
I
and
don't have mine, so
fair. Um, it's over a month old now that I got it. Uh, if I have to say in the explanation as to why the video hasn't gone out until now, I'm gonna edit it tomorrow probably. If in that sentence the term mental health day has to be in that sentence, then it's fine. If I have to
yeah.
take an L, I'll take an L because what I would rather focus on is my own well-being and how crazy my brain might work if I'm stressed out and I fall into those spirals that we've talked about on the show before.
Yeah, and I think like for me it's and you know this about me. For me it's a lot of the mental stuff. So
Mhm.
I was trying to do this video and I had to have it done and I was stressing out about how to make it. But then I was stressing out so much about it that the days that I scheduled to shoot it, I didn't shoot it because I was wound up in my head about doing it.
Mhm.
And then like so this was due Monday night. On Monday I hadn't done anything. Monday morning. This is why we're recording on a Tuesday because yesterday I had to do a video from start to finish and get it out at like before 7.
Yeah.
And you know what? Sunday night when I slept, I was like, wait, this is a simple video. And because I got it in my head that it was a simple video, I got it done in a day
Yeah.
versus
It,
overthinking. So it's really like it's a lot of it is mental.
a lot of it is learning that or reminding ourselves that ultimately our audiences actually don't care if we create a Christopher Nolan feature film.
It's a Christopher Nolan feature film.
Dark Knight, Inception, Interstellar. He's the
Wait, I
director.
like except for Dark Knight. I haven't seen Dark Knight, but
That's
those
okay.
two
You're
are
not
like. Is
you're
it supposed to be a nice video?
it's
Like,
well,
is it?
you're not a nerd, so you don't have to have watched the Batman stuff. But that's what I mean, like super
Uh huh.
involved, super flat, like crazy and like amazing
Yeah.
films. Like we're not trying to make videos like that. We're just trying to be, I guess, what's the term? Helpful. We're just trying to make sure our videos have some sort of value.
I mean, I'm just trying to tell a story.
Yeah.
It's the story of
Um,
a girl. Dun 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 dun. Every morning.
oh, I was thinking of a
She
different
would
song.
say- What?
Uh, I'm trying to remember what the next line is, but it starts with "This is the story of a girl."
Yeah, I know that
Yeah.
song.
um.
Anyway, yeah. It's. I'm trying to get to the point where I'm comfortable enough to say that I just want to shoot the videos I want to shoot. It's a consistent struggle because like if you're a creator you always have to have a line like what am I willing to do to get views and numbers, what am I willing to do to grow my channel, and that's always like a constant battle.
Yeah.
And there are so many nuances to that, um and I don't think people realize this. Like people are just like, oh, they make videos and that's it, that's that, but like It's the direction, it's the messaging, it's what you're willing to do, it's like what type of content you want to put out, what type of people you want to attract, and all those other things.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is in there, but I think I don't know. As you know, I've never really put too
Yeah.
much stock into those metrics.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. You're
and
basically you've
and I'm
been
sure some
doing it
people
for
hate that I
so
do that.
I mean, you've been doing it for so long that you know what to do to get to those to your goals. So it's like for you it's almost automatic.
I guess, yeah, it's not in
Like
my
you
brain.
know who you are. Yeah, but it's the thing is you've been doing these tech videos for so long. You've had and the thing with your branding is that it's you. So for you it doesn't have to be things you think about because it's already there.
Yeah,
You know,
I guess so.
you didn't change who you are from your AA videos to the videos you do now. You may have had different formats, but who you are when you present and what your process is remains the same,
Mhm.
which is not the same thing that can be said for other creators or newer creators. Like, there are so many bits and pieces to getting there if you're a fairly new creator, and it can be like overwhelming.
Yeah, because they get really and there's nothing wrong with this. I'm just saying it happens. Where they get really tunnel visioned into like this is my niche. I'm gonna be this type of creator. I'm gonna do this type of
Mhm.
content, this kind of thing.
But
And the
yeah.
problem is with a lot of those things, there's sometimes a shelf life, and
Yeah,
it's
and
you have to
it's
be adaptable. Is my point.
so this is not a thing that's only applicable to being a content creator. This is a conversation, a mini conversation I've had with a friend and even Joshua at some point. Um when you grow old, there are things that you feel like defines you. Like there's always this idea of yourself growing up that you try to stick to. And sometimes those ideas of who you are might even what's the word might even influence the decisions you make when you're older, but you have to realize that that idea of yourself, in reality you might have to deviate from that.
Yeah.
So in terms of relationships, not just with others but with yourself, like when you say you're in a relationship with another person, you're not just saying yes to the person they are now, it's saying yes to the person that they will be, that they will grow into. And like that's easier to say for other people but harder to say for yourself because you change. And sometimes whatever your idea is of who you are, sometimes that's not how you grow up to be. And
Yeah.
that's okay as long as it's growth. And that lesson applies to content creation as well. There's like not one type of creator. You can't like set out to be this type of creator and in a few months still be the same creator because like it's even faster online.
Yeah. Because if your objective is to get XYZ content out at a certain interval, what happens when you get to the Y in XYZ and you've already run out of ideas? You gotta think of what you're going to put out. If you're trying to be consistent, you got to think about how you're going to adapt to the fact that even you yourself might have not really run out of ideas, but maybe you've lost a little bit of steam. Maybe you go through what Issa and I
Mhm.
have said so many times on this podcast, which is burnout. Maybe you just need a mental health day, like I said a second ago. um,
Yeah.
and there have been so many of those lately. So um, to keep it on the sort of path that we're talking about right now, um, would you like to ask me how I've been?
How you been? How you doing?
I'm doing good, baby. How you doing?
How
The
you doing? Oh my gosh, wait. Favorite Friends episode. That episode where Joey goes to Rachel, how you doing? And Rachel had a drawn on mustache and she goes like,
she was
I'm
drunk.
doing good. How are you doing? And then Joey was like, go back to your room.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, and
Sorry,
Joey is the best character in Friends. Tangent. Okay, go on.
I didn't mean to steer too hard there. I just wasn't sure if you were going to come back to, you
Yeah,
know.
I wasn't. Thank you for steering. I forgot.
See, I
I was
kind
just
of got
like,
it because the more tangents Issa goes on, the more she loses the thread. So that's
yeah,
that's
yeah,
just
yeah. If this were a Slack chat, you have to ping the original one at some point.
yes. So
Slack
uh,
sucks.
so that's the thing. Like there's literally two different. This is going to be one of my tangents, but I'll come back to how I'm feeling. There's literally two different styles of hosting at play in this episode in this show. Because I'm definitely the while I can go on tangents and I can like have fun with the, let's say, the script, I always have it in the back of my brain. I used to,
Mhm.
someone used to say I used to think laterally. So even if I sidestep, I'm still got my eye on what I stepped away from, so I know how to
I
go. So
think like a web. Like
I
when
guess
you
so.
brainstorm and
Hmm.
they're like different. Yeah.
Yeah, you go
Except
all
there's
over.
no paper and we could get confused about where we started.
Well, you go all over the place. And the thing is, Issa literally does hosting gigs out there. So to anybody that doesn't know, like it's funny because I don't know, I just thought of this right now, but it's like obviously we both have our merits as hosts, and that's why people like having us around to host their gigs or to, be the personalities. In my case, it's probably because I'm like not to say neither of us is personable. I'm just saying like I'm very like I steer the conversation, but at the same time, I'm very easy to talk to. On the other hand, Issa's energy just
I think they
livens up
just
the entire thing.
like noise. Who
Maybe in a
knows?
way, I don't know. I just thought of it. It was just funny how I thought of that. Anyway, I've been doing all right. I will say, here are a few things that have happened today that I want that play into the way the last 2 weeks have been. I'm currently fasting, and we've talked about that before. Issa can't understand how I can even fast. But there's yet another thing that has been happening that Issa also cannot fathom. I have been off coffee for the past 2 weeks or a week and a half.
Spent this morning grinding beans, so
I've rubbed off on you. Um, I I don't know. I think because as we all know, caffeine, especially the high caffeine in coffee, raises cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And I think ultimately I might have been overdoing it and just overstressing myself in general. Like even if I wasn't stressed about anything, the fact that I have the coffee in me, I might get the jitters and I'm constantly stressed in my body. I don't know. I feel pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
I would like to put on record that I have this face on.
The I don't understand.
I, I, you know how we have once argued about me being on my phone at critical times in the day where I should not be exposing myself to blue light?
Yes.
I would much sooner quit being on my phone than quit coffee.
Hmm. I get that. I'm 100% there with you. And I know that there's a part of me that probably still wishes for that early morning ritual. The thing is, I've replaced it with something that has far less caffeine, but there's still a
Mhm.
ritual, and that's matcha. So I've just been having
I
matcha every
mean,
morning.
to each his own. I don't understand it, but I'm
I think having a
not gonna
letting
knock
my
on it.
body, well, because here's the thing, biologically, and I'm going to get a little nerdy here, like medical nerdy. I know that in the morning, as you wake up, your body naturally raises its own cortisol levels to wake you up. And what we're doing with
Mhm.
coffee is not really artificially, but we're making those cortisol levels shoot up more. And if
But
something
remember
like
how I am in the morning though, without
no,
coffee?
no, I get that. I get that. In the morning, I have a whole slew of vitamins, the matcha, and then all of that gives me just that little jump start for the for so that my body can do the rest. And I think that's what's been happening. That's the way I'll put it. But I think that's the way that's been happening. But yeah,
I
it's
mean, that's good for you if you feel better.
yeah, like I'm not. I think there is a certain level of anxiety that I realize I've had throughout quarantine. I remember early on in quarantine, maybe like 2 months in, I had panic attacks out of nowhere.
Mhm.
I wasn't even
Mhm.
thinking about anything, and all of a sudden it was hard to breathe.
You know,
And
the mind is a wonderful thing. It's amazing how it all
mm,
works and how it can you can be thinking of things and feeling things without you realizing it
realizing
to protect yourself.
there is one thing that I hope does benefit. Like I hope I benefit from this particular thing. I have obviously, as Issa knows, I have a lot of supplements. I even have caffeine pills, like light caffeine
Mhm.
pills that I might use if I really truly feel like I need them. I hope, I think it will turn out this way, but I hope that because I'm not having coffee as my energy source every day, that when I do need to have a little bit, whether it's through coffee or through the caffeine pills, that it's going to work so well. Like imagine those times during shows when I'm like, all right, I got to work. I throw one in and I just get nuts.
But babe, I mean, we've decided not to be that stressy on shows.
No, I agree, but there are times when we just have to get through it.
Yeah. I mean, we could have tried it this year. We could have been that. We could have. I just got my more than a month visa
Hmm.
and haven't used it. I've been in this room.
I know. It's just been it's been tough, and we're still trying to figure it out. I know that in the news today, and yes, of course, anybody listening to this podcast right now, knowing when we record these episodes, of course, I will say the other piece of news is obviously,
Congratulations!
yep, the other piece of news is obviously that we finally got a petulant child out of the White House. And you know what?
Huh.
Honestly, to anybody listening to the
Mm.
podcast right now, if what I just said pisses you off, feel free to stop watching, because honestly, like, I don't hate anybody who's on the other side. I think that's the point of being a sort of critical thinking liberal, I guess.
Mhm.
I will say this though: if you're going to come in here and just start saying spouting shit that is based on hate rather than fact and empathy, you have no place in this audience. You really don't.
And honestly, I could care less about your opinion. Huh. uh, we
It's
need to be
still
doing that.
it's
Um,
still a little bit harrowing though, because even
mhm.
if 45 has been voted out of office and Biden is going in on January 20th, from now until then, and it's already been happening, all that the GOP has been doing is spreading misinformation. And the moment anybody calls them out and says, "Where's the evidence?" they can't provide it. People, the way that I feel is summed up in this simple tweet or simple sentence that I've seen a lot of people say in one way or another. I don't know how to convince you that you should care about other people, whether it's
Yeah.
about the pandemic, whether it's about politics, whether it's about what side you're on. Because you know what? I actually know a few people who are on the other side. I might be blue. I'm a little bit more moderate, but I lean left. I know people who are on the right who don't condone Trump, and that's great. But at the same time, because they are Republican, doesn't mean that I instantly don't like them, because I have more critical thinking faculties than that. You know?
All I'm gonna say is that it must be nice to have a country with actual parties backed up
Mhm.
by ideals because our partyless system is shit. One, I will say that. Two, I resent people who say that as a non-American, we shouldn't be paying attention to the American elections
Okay,
because
that
honestly,
remark
it
is
shapes the
so
world. And if we weren't colonized, we probably wouldn't care. But we didn't do that though. We got, so, and like, okay, I'm just gonna say this in general. I don't understand why there is shame being attached to trying to inform yourself and care about politics that surround the world.
yeah. I mean, that remark is also really interesting because literally the whole world was watching. So like
Yeah.
there was a great,
And
and I will talk
mhm,
about the levity of this situation in a way, because there are a lot of people who are celebrating even outside of the US. Let me just put that out there first of all. The
mhm.
entire world in one way or another is happy about this. There was a guy, an American, a black American, who was in Paris and they were celebrating in Paris. Did you see this video?
No,
um,
I
there was a reporter just trying to report on the celebrations that were happening in Paris. Celebrations were happening in Paris, guys. I mean, come on. And he just comes over and he doesn't have a shirt on. He has like a knapsack on his back, and he's got a bandana for a mask. And he just goes over and he's all like, "Oh, French news, ho 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 ho," and he just starts like spouting random French words. And he's like, "I love me a croissant, ho ho. Oh,
that sounds
omelette du
like something
fromage,
for
ho
you.
ho." And it wasn't like him being he wasn't even being like offensive. He was just trying to connect with this person and just say like, "Oh, we're celebrating and I'm here in Paris. I love you." You
Mhm.
know, like that kind of thing. And you can see just from the eyes of the reporter who had a mask on that he was laughing his ass off the whole time.
But so coming from a country with someone we need to vote out of office as well. It's to me what was more significant was how there was the biggest voter turnout, how the youth vote swayed all of that.
Mhm.
So I want that.
This is gonna
Honestly,
be
it makes
this is
me it
gonna be a
makes me it makes
oh,
me
go ahead.
sad because I want that and I'm hopeful, but like I'm also a little hopeless. So if that makes sense.
It is a completely different situation out there for sure.
Mhm.
But to say that you shouldn't be focusing on the election here, your own vice president congratulated Biden.
Yeah, no, and then it's also like we have stuff like the Magnitsky Act. So why don't they like? I mean, come on.
Mhm.
The Magnitsky Act is an act that bars certain people from entering the U.S. or even having assets in the U.S. And this includes this stem from like a Russian incident where some blah blah blah. It trickled down to include certain people from the Philippines who your government has dubbed is against human rights and certain ideals and prosecution of a certain senator who shouldn't be in jail in the country right now. So my point is like there is legislation from your end that dictates that. So
That
I mean
affects you.
it's
Mhm.
you know I mean I'm all for it. But my point is if they care and this matters, you know what I mean. I'm not even gonna explain it. One thing that I learned being in a talk on trans what is the word transgenerational trans no not trans transsectional intersectional what is tra, trans and inter let me rephrase one thing I learned from a talk with feminists on intersectional feminism is that sometimes we feel it our duty to sort of explain why this should be the case and why that shouldn't be the case. And that's nice because you're taking effort to educate other people. But
Mhm.
it's also not your responsibility though.
Yeah.
So like, it's I'm in between those two. Like I'd like to educate, I'd like to discuss, I'd like to have a conversation, but at the same time, this is not my responsibility to educate you.
Yeah.
So
Especially if
okay.
they refuse outright, because there are just a bunch of people on whatever side that just will not listen, that just spout. There was the phrase from the campaign that the phrase is, I should say, from the campaign that stuck with me were vote your conscience, vote your heart, stuff like that. It was basically that way. And what they were basically implying is that the worst parts of the other side are just voting with their hate. And that really that irks me so much because the whole idea behind our systems, the whole idea behind what we do as voters, as people, as part of a nation is supposed to be based upon desires and how we feel about one another. And if you're only basing that on the hate you have, baseless as it might be, wow, you are not contributing shit. All you're doing
Yeah.
is hate.
I mean, it's I think it's safe to say that it is a very polarizing time in the timeline of the world. It might be the darkest timeline.
Well, yeah, that was what that was. Didn't we say that
It's
one time on the show that this is basically the darkest time
yeah.
on?
I'm 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 still like there are days when I hear the news, I read about the news and I'm like, "Huh, there
Mhm.
are no words." And I mean, compared to the first times we were doing this podcast where I was so mad, it's like I've been so mad that I'm not even that livid anymore.
Mhm.
And
I I
it's
will
it's
say that despite the mental health decline that I've felt over the last couple of weeks leading up to election day, since the results have come in, obviously I feel better, but it's so cautious, honestly, because
Mhm.
even if the president is someone that I prefer, it doesn't mean that the systems below the president are actually changing. So there's a lot that could
Mm.
still there's still plenty of L's in this W.
I mean, I guess a good point to be made is that whoever you vote for and whoever is put into office, you shouldn't be idolizing. Politicians are
Yeah.
not idols. You vote them in and you make them accountable even after the election period.
Mhm.
So I guess That's that's that.
Yeah. And the last thing that I'll say, this is just the last thing that I want to say about this. Actually, two things, but one of them is to add to your point. I just want to add one more sort of like, can we all just agree that law is law is law? That if after one, maybe even two recounts that are about to happen, if it straight up says that you lost. Like being what I said before, a petulant child that is throwing a tantrum that you didn't get what you wanted is wow, what a great representation of a country that's supposed to be the greatest country in the world. But then the last thing I'll say is I know that on both sides there have been people who have resorted to the wrong ways of dealing with things. You could argue that there are people even on the left who take things too far. You can talk about that. Some people use cancel culture as the example, but one thought that I've had a lot over the last week in preparing for what might be unrest in the country is honestly, this is just from my perspective. And I get that there are people, like I just said, there are people on the left who might do this too. It's just that when you look at, let's say, the media, or you look at news, or you just keep up with current events, when things go south, which side resorts to violence and hatred faster than the other? That's really all I'm going to say. Like that's all that's just my main thought. If I was to have a conversation with someone who's very much a Trump supporter, and I'm just trying to have a conversation, they're the ones who would probably punch me in the mouth first. And honestly, that's just fucked up. So you think I'm going to even try to understand that other side? Maybe not. That's just really that's one of the main thoughts I've had in my head for the last 2 weeks. So,
Yeah.
and that's why we're
Technically together. Okay, see you next time, guys.
It's just a thought.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things I've been marinating in my head, and I had to say it out loud because honestly, that's just the way it looks to me. And I'm not the kind of person that has CNN all the time. I'm not the person who reads and watches left wing news all the time. Not even. It's just what I see based upon all the outlets that I use: Twitter, Reddit, even people in my own state. Just observations. There's just one side that resorts to the biggest form of hate and violence faster than ever. Than others.
So, this wasn't a planned conversation on politics, and a lot of people will say, "Well, why are you talking about politics?" Well, it's also because like it touches our lives. Like this matters because this affects us, and some would say that we're not maybe we're not as privileged when it comes to politics. All these politics in play, me being from a third world country, Joshua being an Asian American, but at the same time, we're even more privileged to be able to talk about it from a distance where our lives aren't threatened. Or are our lives threatened? We don't know. But my point is like the fact that you can talk about it and the fact that you can think about it is a privilege in itself and a privilege that you should use. Because if it's an indication, these politics, they touch your lives whether you realize or not. It shapes your reality, and the least you can do is be informed about it.
Yeah.
And it's not even speaking out, it's not even siding, it's thinking about this. It's thinking about how it affects not just your lives but the people around you, how it shapes your future, how it shapes the future of many.
Yeah.
So
And honestly, aside from the level of knowledge and perspective we try to have where we are, we should start to normalize the feeling and the ability to say, I don't know. It's okay to say that. It's okay to admit that you're not an expert on something. It's okay to bow out when you know that the conversation you will not add to it because you may not have all the knowledge that you need to have in order to add to the conversation. We need to normalize that because the more people just spout based on hate, misinformation, the more we spout on things that have no basis on what is actually being considered, that's when the fights break out. That's when the violence happens. That's when the worst parts of what can happen. Um, so I know I'm trying to be that way. I tried to be as informed as I could during this election. I tried to read up on all of the California props and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And on top of just normalizing, I don't know, we also have to realize that at times we have to make choices that maybe later we're going to think, maybe I should have gone another way. We can
But
make
that's growth.
mistakes. Yeah, exactly.
That's
That's exactly
growth.
what it is.
And that's informed decisions.
Hmm.
And like that's what I'm trying to learn basically is to be more level-headed to things,
Hmm.
which again, hard, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
We are in the darkest timeline and we can only do as much. So this is a heavy topic considering we wanted to talk about like how we buy stuff,
We still can.
how
We
we
got
make
20. We got a
informed
solid.
decisions
We have a
when we
solid
buy
20.
things.
And it kind of dovetails into that, right? Like we try to be as
Yeah.
informed about the important things in our life as we do the things we try to be as informed in our politics and our voting and our civil lives. We try to
Mhm.
be that informed with our retail therapy.
I'm not though. Like my process is ask Joshua, but it's also because where I'm from, you can really return stuff,
Yep.
so it sucks.
So
And
do you want to
like,
do you want to point out like how this
oh, so
conversation?
basically, before we did this podcast, I was asking Joshua if I should buy his Rode Wireless Go, like if I should buy a similar one, because I mean, if you guys have not noticed by now, I've always had issues with audio. I'm not the most auditory person. So always, so Joshua has his stuff figured out, but and he always suggests me things to get, but for me, the process of getting new gear is me learning how to use my present gear, and eventually when there are things I want to do, leveling up my content, and I cannot do it anymore with my present gear, that's the time I get triggered to buy stuff.
That is well that is actually an ideal way of looking at it. Like once
Yes.
you figure out how you want to do something and you realize the tools you have won't do it,
Yeah.
that's when you upgrade.
Yeah. So, for example, I think this was a conversation where you understood how my brain worked when it came to upgrading stuff. I used to shoot with a point and shoot camera, and Joshua was suggesting so many cameras, and I just didn't want it. Mostly because I didn't even know how to use the point and shoot camera yet. It was a good point and shoot though. It wasn't like a cheap whatever one. It was a good one. It was a
Mhm.
good starting. I can't even remember. It was a good starting camera. But it came to the point where with the shots I wanted, I wasn't getting with a point and shoot, and that's when I upgraded. So for the longest time, I couldn't even tell good audio from bad audio, and I probably still can't, like, you know, to that extent. But now I can semi like hear if it's crap versus it's not. So my level is it's crap versus it's not as crap. So so anyway, I've been changing around my shooting styles. But I was trying to figure out how to get good audio um, when I am not able to have a mic. This mic, I should not have tapped that. See, not very good with audio. This mic, um, when I'm not able to have it in front of me.
Yeah.
Like, I like to. Shut up, dogs. Okay, I'm not able to set it up. So I was thinking of getting, because Joshua has the Rode Wireless Go, and I was thinking of getting it. So of course I went through the motions of researching if I should get it, which is ask Joshua.
Well, you already had a few thoughts about it, and I know that in your case, the best item is the most convenient.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Basically, this is a weird lesson that I learned. Like, you could get the best, which might work for some people, but it doesn't really work for me. Because most of the time, not all the time, the best also comes with more complications,
mhm.
and I can't deal with that.
Well, this is where the whole joke that we already said on the show of like your wants defy physics,
Yeah,
is
but Peak
because
Design made it happen.
well, then you can ask them to make the microphone you want. Then,
I
um,
mean,
so that's the thing is that there are there could be solutions to all of these things, and most of the time, what comes to mind in my brain now has a new layer to it, which is which part of this is going to make Issa throw something at the wall. And
yeah. So
the thing
he
is, you
actually said
usually,
that
yeah, you
in
usually
this
are not the type
conversation.
of you usually aren't the type of person. And honestly, like I said before, this is the tough part. You usually are the kind of person that doesn't want to deal. So
Yeah,
if I were to tell you, oh, okay, well, you have an iPhone. If you were to just plug in a Rode into your iPhone and that could be your lav, like there you
I
go.
thought of
Like
that. Uh-huh.
yeah, like that's one way of doing it. But then you were telling me that, and I know that you would probably the one time that the cord gets tangled, you're already mad at it. You never want to
Yeah,
use it
because
again.
it keeps on happening.
Yeah.
It keeps on happening. That's mostly my issue. Like I did have the A1H1 AH1 and AH H1N. I did have the H1N recorder and a lapel, but I did something, and so the audio is bad. Because I don't know, and so it's like I can't. It keeps on happening.
So do you check the H1N before you hit record and you're testing your levels and you're just sort of thinking, oh, like it won't move if it's here, or the
Well,
H1's in your
one,
pocket.
yes, but then it moves, and then I do a lot of things. I keep on moving. I keep on moving. I
So
keep
these
on
are all
moving.
these are
I
all
don't
the
know how to fix that.
So these are all of the considerations that someone like me has. So that's the reason why I'm like, well, what you just said right now, the fact that you move a lot. The Rode Wireless Go, by the way, to anybody who doesn't know, is a clip-on system. So one of them connects to the camera, and then the other one is a microphone. So you could use it on its own. You clip it on a shirt. But just like Issa just said, she moves around a lot. She eventually something gets dislodged. It'll be even worse with this little square that's on your shirt. If you move and then you bend over, it could just fall off the clip of your
Yeah,
shirt.
but isn't it like worse if I have a stationary mic like this and like I keep on moving?
Well, yeah, no,
Because
of
then
course,
there
which
won't
is
be
why we're looking
audio.
for the next, yeah, which is why we're looking for the next step. Because you're not the type of shooter who's like me, where I have my setup around the tools that gets me what I want, and I do all my A roll in one go with B roll on top of that. You like to do the sort of live type of thing where both your reactions and the B roll are kind of happening all at the same time.
Mm.
Because for me, it's 15 minutes A roll using this mic. I'm in front of the camera. Even if I have to cut to me and I don't have anything in my hands and I'm not showing the product, I'm still that's still a clip I would use because it has the quality that I want. But in your case, you want it all done in the one shot.
I mean, not all, but like I at least want like more visuals for my A roll. If that makes
Mhm.
sense.
And that's
So
fine. So you have to find out what might work for it. My main thing is okay. Another detail that I think our audience should know: the Rode Wireless Go is $200. Not cheap, not very cheap. So I have a set, and I would prefer her to use my set. That way, you can try it
but
because I think it's
you're
worth.
so far away.
I think it's
Doesn't
worth.
anybody? Okay.
I don't know what you expect me to do when you do that. I just get
Oh
quiet.
wait, it's worth like at least for less than 400 here. I just did the math. 5,000. Yeah, it's worth at least like 300 plus dollars here.
Okay, so even worse in the Philippines. Um,
Mm.
so the
There's a fly. Go on.
I think it's worth trying, but I can already, but like we were saying earlier, I can already tell what aspects of the product she'll get annoyed by. And
Yeah, that's what I love about Joshua. He thinks up what aspects annoy me.
and you know what? Like I've said before on the show, like we have to not pass judgment on anything. I used to pass judgment. Like, why would you let that bother you? But the fact of the matter is it bothers you. That's the point. Like
Yeah, and
there's no getting
okay,
past that.
think of it this way.
While I will
Uh,
find my ways of getting around it and I'll deal and all that stuff, what I have learned after over 3 years in this relationship with Issa is she will
have you
not
been
deal.
together for 3 years?
2017, right?
That's so nice. Okay, we've grown old together and matured together. Wait, okay, I just want to point out that as much as that, like, okay, in my friend group, I'm the most patient when it comes to tech. Let's keep that in mind. So I have lifestyle content creator friends who cannot deal. And they get so, it will round back to how I do my content because they get so frustrated. They watch all these reviews and they're like, I'm not going to do that. And
I mean,
so, I mean, I just want to point out, like, I'm
sure.
bad, but they're like, I am on the spectrum of the people I know. They look at me and think I'm a hardcore techie. And I'm like, bruh, the reason why I have this mic and I love this mic is because it's pink.
Then that's why I got it for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's great. It sounds good. It's amazing. Thank you, babe. But I
Yeah.
love it because it's pink.
So
So,
those are the considerations I have to be in mind. And meanwhile, on my end, like I know that I'm in a more privileged position in that I can get items and try them. And on the one hand, even if they don't work out quite as well as I need them
man, to
to,
live that life.
I can return it, or at worst, just take the monetary L and just have it in my arsenal in case I need it. Like
Babe.
I'm looking at my bag
Mhm.
right now, and I have like two lavs in here that I haven't even touched. And you notice
As if,
I never
mhm,
use the ear mics anymore. Remember those?
yeah. As Filipinos, one of the things that amazes us when we travel to the US for the first time is the fact that you can return things. So, like in the movies, there's that whole thing where you buy a dress and you keep the tags on, and everyone's like, "Oh, why would you do that?" And like, if you're Filipino, you're like, "You can do that."
Hmm.
I mean, it's amazing to me. Like, for context, we don't have an official Apple store. We have official Apple reseller. So my friend got an iPhone 11. This was pre iPhone 12. It was broken. So he had to bring it to the official Apple reseller. You know how long it took them to replace it? And it wasn't his fault. Like it got to him broken.
How
Two
long?
months.
Oh wow.
He didn't have a phone for 2 months. And he's like, I can't afford another one. I just bought this.
Yeah, that sucks.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's and to go back to the topic of how we actually buy certain things, there is one aspect I feel like I need to say. I don't know who needs to hear this, and you have certainly experienced this yourself already, so it's not like you need to hear this. But sometimes when you're doing your research and you're trying to figure out how an item will actually work for you, you could watch all the YouTube, you could read all the reviews, you could do all those things, but I have an example that I'll bring up in a second. But until you actually experience what an item like that can bring to you, your research will never, ever match
Mhm.
that experience. So, for example, as Issa knows, I had a laptop last year that worked pretty well. And certainly there were certain laptops that we were able to use because of the work that we have, but that we do. But ultimately, the laptops that I was having were not quite like the beasts that I was hoping for. I was always looking for value. I was always looking for like a middle path. Let me find what the perfect like synergy between value and performance is. And then this year happened. And I started getting the opportunity to try out some pretty powerful laptops. I'm on one of them right now. These are like the top graphics cards, like really good CPUs, the great internals, all these things. And Issa remembers that when I first did a video on like the desktop that I got from MSI, I was almost crying because I could think of all of the times we were out on the road and I was trying to get a video done, but the render time would be like 30 minutes. And then I rendered a 15-minute video in 4 minutes. Like
So
I almost
mm,
cried when I did that. So I would not have truly known to get items that had that kind of performance had I not actually experienced what that was like.
yeah. On the other hand, let me just point out, you mentioned that I would not deal. This is also a big mentality that, let's say, Apple users or MacBook users have. I don't want to deal. I don't want to think about specs. So I will buy a MacBook, which by the way, hey, guess what? I just paid it off.
Oh, nice.
Remember, I didn't have a laptop, and then it went. My laptop went swimming, and then I didn't have one, and I got one. Like so, actually, so I bought it, but then I don't know what happened. I think what happened. Point is, I ended up owing my parents for it. And I just paid it off.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
So, okay, whatever. Point is, so yeah, the thing with this is that I know that, I mean, if I knew better about laptops and had the patience to probably deal with specs or performance, blah blah, that would be, whatever. But I want a laptop that works. I want a laptop that lasts. Mind you, before I got my 2017 MacBook, I think that was 2017, right?
I think so.
Yeah,
You were
I
using the
was edit.
plastic one. No, not
No,
plastic.
not the plastic one. It was still the 2009 Mac I was using, and it still
Got it.
works great. The only problem was that like it wasn't like since it was old, it could edit videos, and I was shooting vlogs on it and editing vlogs on it, but not in the most efficient way, but it could.
Hmm.
So like, I mean, that type of value and never ever having to think about it for me is the whole thing with the MacBook. One sure sign way of good tech for me is that if I'm feeling like there's no learning curve, sometimes it's a little disappointing. You get new tech and then it feels just like the old one. You're like, what's new? It feels like my old phone. But that means it's great because that means you don't even have to adjust. And they made it so that like there's no learning curve. And I think that's the main thing. For me, that's the main thing that turns people off from like even more tech. Like
Well, it depends
it's
on what
it
your
just
it depends on what your trajectory has to be because the thing I should have taken away from that laptop I talked about last year was that it didn't really increase my productivity.
oh
Like I
yeah, well
should have
yeah,
known that, you know.
yeah,
Now it's my
sure.
brother's,
But
so it went to
yeah.
someone. It went to good use. So now it's my brother's.
I mean it's just to each his own. It goes back to that, right? Like it's what you're willing to do,
Hmm.
informing yourself,
Well, that's the
figuring out
reason
how stuff
why,
works.
and that's the reason why I have no qualms with telling you, like, yeah, just take mine because that's the reason why is because you should experience what said items can actually do for you, and only you will know how to apply it to your workflow. So
Honestly, this privilege. And I mean, I'm sorry. It's funny because like I have friends who creator friends here who talk about the stuff they need or stuff they want to buy, and I'm just like, oh, I tried that from Joshua. Oh, Joshua. They're like, Isa, what do you use? Like this is, and I'm like, oh, Joshua.
I mean, it's not
Like I
even like
remember for the longest time, it's the audio. Like, what do you use? Ah, Joshua. I'm like, how do you? Joshua. What? Like, so I think the only thing that we like that you haven't like, so even with my camera, like you're not on a Fuji, but like you helped me pick out the lenses. It's like, Joshua.
and then we're going to try to get you that XS10 because I think it would be a great upgrade.
I should. I mean, I'm not rushing. I
Yeah, no,
should
don't
have
rush. You really
a
don't.
unit.
You really
I
don't.
just have way too much stuff.
Oh
So
wait, you have the XS10?
no, I will
Okay.
probably get a unit to
Even I
review
was
to
looking
try
at
out.
that. Like,
Yeah,
if
to
if
try
other
out.
cameras didn't exist, and I just wanted some, if I was a true vlogger and I really wanted something else, like that is kind of up there, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah. So
Anyway,
yeah, and it's not
the
that expensive, honestly.
it's not, especially since you have the lenses already. It's a great. It
Yeah,
would be a great upgrade, and I could see
yeah.
you already. I don't know how. This is one topic we've never approached. I don't know how steady you are as a shooter, but the fact that that camera has IBIS, it has stabilization, it might
I'm
make your
not
work
steady
okay.
shooter.
If you were to
You,
try, I feel like you could be like me. And you notice I don't do pans, I don't do stuff. I actually just handhold a lot of shots these days.
so
That's how
my
good
moves
stabilization
when
has
it
gotten.
comes to yeah, my moves when it comes to camera is like I do this. Sometimes when I get bored, I just do this. And then when I do that, it's my knees and my hips that move.
Fair.
Because I feel like
Um,
it's easier. It's more steady.
yeah. But okay, to tie it back, I will say this: the reason why I have to think so hard about these things for you,
Is because when
um,
I get pissed, I rant to you and then you have to fix it again.
actually, kind of. I was actually gonna make it even simpler. Those moments when you scream in frustration, they affect me to my core. Like when I'm in the room and you like scream in agony about something that's not working for you, or you're frustrated about something, everything in my being drops, and I'm just like, oh my god, what happened? And then that's
And
when
then I'm like, I can't get this cord to connect.
well, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, because you mad is not good for anyone, including yourself. And
Yeah.
when you jump off, when you are pushed off that cliff, like the recovery might be quick, like we've said in the podcast before, that you can get past things a little bit faster than I can. But even then, damage is done. Like,
Yeah.
the flow is
Y-
disrupted.
Sometimes and I try to keep this in mind. Sometimes it's okay to take a quick break, because sometimes when you're setting up and nothing works, you're just like, I'm not in the mood to do it anymore. And
Mhm.
it's like it's hard. And so I learned that it's good to take breaks when that happens, because otherwise, like, I can't fake it. It's hard. It's tough.
Yeah, indeed.
I have
And
a
you know
very
what?
expressive face.
Very. Like, if we were in a new friend group, not a new friend group, if we were meeting strangers and you didn't like someone in that group, it would show. And you would be trying not to show it. And it would still show. um so that's the thing, like, you're so emotive and I'm so empathic, and I get that not empathy.
And just we were just standing there and judging.
No, no.
Trying not to judge, but silently judging.
No, it's more
So the
like,
whole thought process in my head be like, don't judge them. But
oh,
then
that
the
part,
fact
yeah.
that I'm having this conversation is you judging them.
Yeah, and then you'll have, like, for someone so talkative, you'll have like 1 to 3 word answers.
Yeah,
But
oh my god, I do that, huh?
yep.
If I don't
Um,
like the person, I'm just like,
so in my case, though, the reason why I say it affects me when you get that frustrated is because I am empathic. This is different from being empathetic. You can be empathetic to
mm,
somebody, but when you're empathic to somebody, you actually take on their emotion, which can be
yeah.
useful, but is often not the best thing to do, because if someone's really pissed off, they don't want you to be the pissed off one too. They want you to be the comforting one. So I have had
And
to
considering, babe, that I mean, I would like to think I've improved in terms of my production.
yeah, you
Probably
have.
not like outwardly, but like even in terms of inward, like even more inwardly in terms of how I work. So it's like, remember, I was with Joshua when I was starting this channel and not even understanding how I'm gonna shoot my A roll.
Mm,
So imagine all the friction of me just not getting it, not getting what I want, frustrated because I don't know what I want, not tech not working the way I want. And it wasn't happy. Hey, since we did do that, that means we can weather a lot more. Start another channel. I'm kidding. No.
but yeah, it's just true.
I never really thought about that, because when I was working at your office, I literally, every video was a pain. Every video was like pulling teeth out. It's like, how, like, every video that I started, I didn't know how to do at all. Like, it was that point. Like, now, if you tell me I want an unboxing, I know how to do it. If you tell me I want a review, I want to blah, blah, blah. But like at that point, every time I finished the video and I moved on to a new one, I did not know how I would be shooting it.
Well, you know what that was? It was you looking at each video as a completely new endeavor. But if five
Yeah.
videos have the word unboxing at the end, they can all be shot the exact freaking way.
Yeah, but I didn't know that
Yeah, you did.
at
You
that
weren't
point.
experienced with that. Yeah.
And I didn't even know how I'd be shooting my unboxings at that point.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it was like all a question mark. And so Joshua was just there shooting his own stuff while that was happening. The war, the rage, the confusion in this little
Hmm.
area in his office, who
And
was cold or hungry, confused.
here's my experience talking in my brain of like, don't intervene. She'll figure it out. Like the moment that I step in and I try to take over is the moment that she will resent me because, she doesn't want to do it my way. She just doesn't. That's just the truth. No matter what I say, she's going to want to do it her way, even if she doesn't know what way that is yet. So that's why when it comes to buying items, I have to tell you every layer. I have to peel the onion like so much so that you can
Babe,
understand.
I honestly really think that you should do a like interpreting tech my girlfriend wants or some weird stuff like that and be like, okay, boys, if your girlfriend says she wants a phone and she says this is what she means. Stuff like that.
I gotta write. I
I
gotta
think
write
the
stuff
men of the
down.
world, yeah, I think the men of the world needs to listen to you about that. One that's one idea. Wait, what was my other one? It's two. I sent you a TikTok
Okay, I was just
about
about to
that.
bring that up. I was just about to bring
Yeah.
that up. The She sent me a TikTok, and which is funny. You're the only person I get messages from, and I do want to start getting a little bit more into the platform. I'm not too sure how yet,
I
but
love it.
yeah, I mean, I see stuff that I enjoy. It is a time
Uh-huh.
suck. It's crazy how easy of a
It
time suck it
is.
can
It
be.
is. It is. It is.
But she
Definitely.
sent me even on this topic. Like it started out as a topic of us saying how we research our tech and what to buy, but it also turned
Mhm.
into a conversation of how we communicate with one another in this context.
Mhm.
So she sent me this basically. Do you want to go ahead and paraphrase what the what the TikTok
Basically,
was?
the guy goes like, "Listen to this. This will change your freaking life. Every time you have a conversation with your significant other, ask them, do you want me to listen or do you want me to fix it?"
Mhm. And then
Basically,
you said after that, your next message was, "Oh,
I
we've already achieved this."
figured it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because I mean, but it wasn't easy. Like we had like really long conversations on it. It wasn't like an instant thing. It was something that we had to communicate to each other as well, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
I
Indeed.
mean, also, I mean, let me just say this really quickly. Like sometimes I get annoyed at like people who, I mean, I know in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal. But like sometimes when people are like, "Oh, I hope everyone, that's such. I hope I find someone as well, or I hope I get into a good relationship too." But like, it doesn't just happen though. You work
Mhm.
towards it though. Like it's sure you meet someone, but then after that, it's a lot of decisions and a lot of conversations and a lot of like deciding that we're gonna make it work. You know
Yeah. Totally.
so anyway,
Um,
but yeah, we had that long conversation, and it's true because personally, I don't need. I how do I say this? I want to fix my own shit. I value your opinion in fixing my own shit, but ultimately, it is I who will do the shit fixing,
yeah. And I have to
right?
wait. I have to wait for the moment where I can say, because there comes a point in time, or there comes a point in productivity where everything you do gets you nowhere. And I have to
Hmm.
wait for that point before I can finally come in and go, are you willing to try it my way?
Yeah,
Finally. And
yeah,
it takes a long time. And like I said before, when she gets really upset and is screaming and is like grunting and just getting the anger out, it's not easy to be around that. It's true for anybody. It doesn't matter who you are. Like that's not really easy to be around that kind of frustration. So the road to that point is going to be lined with blood, but by the end, if I can finally just say, "Do you want to try it my way?" Like that's just it's the simple question. It's not me forcing it on her. It's not
yeah,
me just taking over because that's the last thing you want. Let's just put it this
yeah,
way, guys, listening to this episode, if you're wondering how to apply this to your real life and how to think about it in more concrete terms for guys, if you were not able to get past a certain level in a video game, would you want your significant other to just snatch the controller away from you and do it for you? Probably not.
Oh, that's a good metaphor.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
a good job, babe.
so yeah, that's the thing. I do want to just point out real quick that I hope everybody is taking care of each other, taking care of yourselves. Honestly, wear the fucking masks and social distance and all that stuff because there are two people that we know who recently tested positive and they're quarantining right now.
Oh,
So So Tim Schofield, I hope you're doing all right, you and your girlfriend. And then one of our fans, one of our loyal fans, well, one of our loyal viewers, I should say, Michael Pepper Tech, just tested positive for COVID as well.
What, Michael? Get well soon.
So I just want to put it out there. Knowing like it's those two things. Like I have been going out a little bit more. I've been very cautious, but I have been doing more things. Now that I'm seeing this, and now that I've gone through the anxiety and the paranoia over the last week, I'm like, you know what? I am going to lay low for 2 weeks. I'm fine. My
Yeah.
temperature's never risen. I don't have any symptoms. I feel fine. I'm good. But I'm gonna I'm gonna just hole up for 2 weeks because that's how paranoid I can get with this
Dude,
stuff.
I've only been out like 6 times since March. I've
Mm,
literally skipped parties, weddings. In the Philippines, there's no like I don't think we have a lockdown anymore. Like people are out working. Like
mhm,
that is the game plan. Ignore the pandemic and just let people die. Um but so I know this is also privilege that I can choose to just not go out. But since I do have that privilege, I will, just use
yeah,
it just so I won't add to the mix. So it's literally I have missed so many things, but in my head, like that's such a small thing compared to what might happen. And I'm not even scared for me because I'm young and I'm a workhorse. What? Um, but
I mean,
like
you
I,
have
I
been.
live with older parents. I live with older people.
Yeah,
And I don't want that risk at all.
yeah, definitely. So it is, yeah, I mean, cases are going up all over the world, and it's just, I have to sort of put my foot down at some point, even with myself, because
Yeah.
I have actually eaten out. I have actually gone to another city. I have actually done a couple of things. Again, masks on the entire time, being super vigilant and cautious of whoever is around me. The moment I hear a cough, I'm like, we're leaving. But like,
Yeah, but
now that it's
it's not
happened,
always, yeah, but it's also not always the people who cough
exactly.
who infect other people, and it's not always like just
And it's
interaction,
scary.
it's touching the same surfaces. It's,
Yeah.
you know,
And it's really
being
scary
in the same
because,
elevator.
and it's also scary because if someone at an establishment I was at had it, there's no way I would be informed. Like for example, there's a YouTuber who's in South Korea right now, and in order to enter literally any establishment that you're going to spend time at, you have to put your name and number down so that they can contact you if they find out that anybody has been,
We used
like,
to do that. The few times I went out, they did have that.
hmm,
But so for with our case, apparently no one does it. Like you just do it, and like contact tracing is just like,
yeah, like there have to be measures to protect people. And that goes back to our first, or rather, I don't know if this part's going to be at the beginning of the episode or later, but it goes back to what I was saying earlier in the recording, which is I don't know how to convince you that you should care about other people. Like that you would think it's such a basic tenet of life. And that's what I hope more than anything that we're able to, because even on just the level of this episode and show you're listening to or watching right now, the more we care about each other, the more that Issa and I can actually be literally together and not just technically together.
I mean, I guess the takeaway is if we inform ourselves this much about the stuff we're gonna buy, we should inform ourselves as much as to the people we choose to pay to run our respective countries. This isn't free. We are literally paying them. They
Hmm.
are literally employees.
Yeah,
So that's something to think about.
for sure. So yeah, I don't
That
know.
is technically right. Yes, that is technically together.
Yeah,
That
I
is
thought that
that.
I thought it was going to end after I said technically together, but
Oh, well, now it is. Hope you guys enjoyed our comeback of sorts. That was episode 11 of Technically Together. This podcast's lesson happened earlier on in the show, so I'm gonna keep this short. But to reiterate, this is just your reminder that sometimes you get things perfect, sometimes you don't, even after you've gotten it perfect. That's it for this week. Keep safe, keep healthy, you guys. See you again next Saturday.